see y'all got my memo about meeting with me today on the ladders.
Yeah, but why?
Why are you dressed like a bird?
Okay, not a bird. I'm not a bird. Anyway, the reason I wanted y'all to meet like this is because what better way to give our 2024 Money in the Bank predictions than on the same exact steel structures that these brave women have to ascend up to grab that contract encased in the Money in the Bank briefcase. Now me, if you can't tell by my wings, my pick is Lyra Valkyria. I think she is on the upwards trajectory in her career, and I would absolutely love to see her win this event.
Yeah. Where's your ladder at?
Oh, funny you ask, Comer Alexa, because I actually already climbed a super, really tall ladder. I wasn't scared at all. I was, super brave and stuff. But I had to climb it to grab the LJV Money in the Bank suitcase. Now, what's inside, you may ask? What's inside? I hear you, okay? I'm going to answer. What's inside is today's figure that we are going to review today.
Suitcase? What did the treasurer not put it in the budget to afford a briefcase for LJV?
No, he did not. But do you realize how expensive briefcases are? They're like, here's the LJV budget, and those things are way up here. We just can't afford that, you understand? But either way, you're killing my vibes here, because I have something exciting to say to y'all. Whoever picks the correct winner gets to review a figure of their choice right here on the channel, all by themselves. Alright, let's just get into y'all's predictions. Queen Diva Marie, get us started.
It's Tiffy time! Of course I'm going to go with my buff Barbie. She's totes gonna win. I can't wait!
According to my performance calculations, Io Sky has a high chance of winning the briefcase. So my pick is the most logical, Io Sky.
We have made a consensus decision. Zoe Stark is our pick because she is a cyborg like us.
Okay, she's actually not. You know what? Yeah, you're right. She's a cyborg or a robot or whatever you want to pretend she is. Anyway, Comer Alexa, who you got?
I think it's Chelsea Green's time to shine. Let's be honest, she deserves the briefcase more than anyone. That's who I pick.
Oh, Chelsea. That was actually who I was close to picking, but I'm going to stick with Lyra here. Oh, Dexy, by default, you got Naomi. Alright, gang, it looks like everyone has their picks officially in. May the best resident of LJV win. Hopefully it's me. Anyway, let's get to opening up the LJV Money in the Bank suitcase to see who I'm reviewing today. Now, before I announce this figure, I just want y'all to do one thing for me. Sit back, holler in the air. Thank you, Trish.
Thank you, Trish!
I think he meant that rhetorically.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't really expect anyone to say anything back, but either way, I'm reviewing Elite Series 111 Trish, and it looks like an awesome figure, so I'm super excited. Now, I'm going to go get ready for this figure review, and y'all can take some time, say your prayers that you're going to win, because I have a feeling y'all are going to need it. Now, I'm going to review this figure, duck, face, deuces.
I'll give you all 10 seconds to get off the ladders before I start wreaking havoc.
welcome to Lumberjillville. Women's wrestling lives here. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind you to please hit subscribe to become an official resident of LJV and get a first look at all future women's wrestling figures like today's very exciting review of WWE Elite Series 111 Trish Stratus. This figure looks awesome. I thought it looked awesome from when they first showed pictures off. And yeah, it looks really, really cool. I'm glad to have a good modern day Trish. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at this figure and let's start off with the packaging. Alright, so starting off the packaging here, I do think it looks pretty cool MOC. She's posed nicely, even with that obstructed window view that we've gotten on this recent Elite Series box change. I think it looks pretty good. I really, really like it. However, what I don't like, and I cover this all the time, especially with the most recent Elites, is the paper-thin, cheap, flimsy cardboard. I feel like every time they make a change to the Elite-style packaging, the cardboard gets thinner and thinner, and this is just, yeah, it's bad, y'all. Now, I did order 2 Trishes, and this one was in the worst shape, so this is going to be the one we open up today. But yeah, it's just a really low-quality packaging. Just not a fan of the quality, but the aesthetic is nice, I will say that. On the front, we have the series number, her name, the image of the stunning Trish Stratus. We have a little window up top here to allow light in so we get an image of that Trish. Her name's on that side. This side is a larger image of Trish. And on the back here, we have a little blurb. It says, Trish Stratus returned to WWE to prove to Becky Lynch that she's still the best competitor in the women's division that was built on her back. Now, that is very, very cool. And it's cool that they did use an image from what this attire is actually from, which I'll cover next. So that's definitely cool. They don't always do that. But yeah, I think the packaging, it looks good, but feeling the quality of it is just woof. But we're here to review the figure. So let's get this figure out and take a closer look. WWE Elite Series 111 Trish Stratus. This attire is from the Money in the Bank 2023 Premium Live event, which took place on July 1st in London, England. On this night, Trish would compete in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which was ultimately won by Io Sky. Alright, so my overall first impressions of this figure. This figure freaking rules. I mean, even looking at it from a distance, I can tell that Mattel really went the extra mile on little tiny details that I'm really happy they included. Some of the sculpted details they've never really accomplished on a women's wrestling figure in the past, and we'll cover that in a little bit. But yeah, my first impressions are through the roof. I will say that. Trish definitely deserves this figure here. Now, she has had some good figures. You know, ever since that Elite 88 debacle, she's had a couple good ones after that. Plenty of good ones before it, but this one just might be the best, and that's just my first impressions. Obviously, we will break down this figure part by part, piece by piece, and we'll see how it holds up when we take a closer look. But in the package, she comes with a right grasping hand, and her left hand is a pointer finger to give her pose. She also comes packaged with a right pointer finger there, and a left grasping hand. But what really stands out are the accessories of her entrance gear. So she has this really cool cowboy hat, and yeah, it does look a little big, but in my opinion, it looks good. I have no complaints on it. Maybe it could be a little smaller, but that's definitely not something that takes points off because this hat looks awesome. And if you look at the history of how hard it is to make action figure hats, I mean, look at any baseball hat that Mattel has made, and it is a debacle. It really is. They look so bad. So I'm happy with how this cowboy hat turned out. I think it's really, really cool. Sits nicely on her head. I'm not sure if this is a reused hat. It does seem a little bit big. Maybe it was made for a men's figure in the past. I'm not sure. But it looks nice on Trish here. Now taking that out and looking, we can see the silver band that goes around the top. And it even has a little studded design on the back that's sculpted on that looks really, really cool. Now, I do believe that the flat silver side is which way it should be facing forward. I looked at the other one, that's MOC, and I looked at images from the night, so I think this is the way it goes. But I am curious, and let me know in the comments if this hat has been reused from a previous men's figure. But it works good on Trish here. I think it looks really good. But what's the main event of her accessories is this freaking awesome entrance jacket. I mean, look how freaking cool this is. This looks awesome. Now, to get the negatives out of the way, right away I can tell that it's super thin. It's that Victoria's Secret nightgown material that is just see-through as all can be. I mean, look at the Ultimate Edition Charlotte robe. You can kind of get an idea what I'm talking about there with how thin it is. I wish it was thicker, but it really looks good on display, and what really stands out is this fur collar that's not only puffy, it's a good quality, and it goes all the way around. Like, I'm really excited to pose this figure, not only for the thumbnail, but figure photography. It looks awesome with this jacket on. Now, to take the jacket off, if you remove her hands, it would be a little easier, but to save time, I'm just going to slide it over her hands there. It comes off nicely, and yeah, we can see the quality of this jacket, which is really, really cool. I really love it. Now, with all of that aside, let's take a closer look at the figure, and let's look at that face sculpt, face scan, and hair sculpt. Alright, so this is a brand new face sculpt, face scan, and hair sculpt for Trish Stratus, and I actually love it. I could see this being a love or hate sculpt and scan, because is it perfect? I don't think it's perfect, and I think that lies in the face shape. I think the shape of the face might be a little too long, but either way, I think it depicts a modern day Trish really, really well. And we will compare this figure to some previous figures of hers, including another figure that depicts a modern Trish, and you can let me know in the comments which you like better. But yeah, I really like this new face sculpt and scan. I think it does a good job of capturing Trish's beauty. I think it's really good. As I mentioned, I think something's a little bit off about it. Nothing major, nothing that makes me look at this figure and go, who is that? I think anyone that looks at this figure can say, oh, that's Trish, but I do think it's a little bit off, and I think it's the overall structure of the face is a little too long, but I like it. I think they did an excellent job with the eyebrows, with the eyes, the eyelashes, the mouth even. Look at the cheekbones there. I think it looks really, really good. The more I look at it, the more I love it, honestly. Now, what I love about this hair, and this is something I have covered in Lumberjillville since the start of the channel, and I've really pushed for Mattel to please put more effort into the coloration of the female hair. And I know that sounds weird, but what I mean by that is a lot of these females have different colored roots, or they have highlights, and they never really depicted that in the past, but they've started to as of late. Maybe they've heard my voice, maybe I made a difference, maybe I didn't, I don't know, but I absolutely love what they did here with the hair, how it's real dark near the roots, and it goes out into a blonde. I think that's really cool, and even though it might not exactly be perfect to how it looked that night, she really didn't have that dark of roots from what I'm looking at the image on the back of the packaging here, but I like the character that it adds. It adds a flavor and a character to the hair that I would rather have it look like this than have it just one solid blonde color, which is something they would have done in the past. So I really like that they are starting to put more attention and effort into the color of the women's hair. And the sculpt itself is really nice. We have hair flowing over her right shoulder and her left shoulder. The sculpting going around looks really, really cool. So yeah, as far as the face sculpt and scan, I actually really like it. The more I look at it, the more I love it, to be honest with you. But I could see some people out there not being a huge fan because, as I mentioned, the sculpt might be a little too long. Maybe if it was a little shorter, a little smaller of a sculpt, it would be perfect. But I think it's darn near close in my opinion. And as far as the hair goes, I love that they attempted to give some effort to the coloration of the hair, adding the darker roots going into the blonde. I like it. Even though it might not be accurate, I would rather see that than one solid color. So I really like what they did here with the head. Alright, so as far as the body sculpt and attire, they did a freaking tremendous job with part choices, with added detail to the sculpting to make this feel like this is truly a Trish Stratus figure. Now, what I mean by that is that's something I always say in the Jazzwares Women's Figures review, that they do a good job of making unique parts and unique sculpts to make the figures feel individualized to the female performer that the figures are based off of. And Mattel is kind of guilty of not doing that so much. They reuse parts a lot. A lot of times they don't give added details or anything that really makes it feel like that sculpt was made for them. But this figure, I really do think not only the part choices are good, but they added some really cool, unique sculpting and details that makes this feel like a truly unique figure. Like, this is a Trish Stratus figure made only for Trish, and I love it. Now, the one thing I'm gonna start off with And this is kind of a big deal for Mattel because a lot of times they don't put the extra effort, as I mentioned, the individualized effort in the sculpts. And one of the categories is the chest. A lot of times they kind of shy away from that. I know they try to be a family-friendly company, but at the same time, I think if they depict a woman's physique accurately, I think that's amazing. I think that's beautiful. And here they did a good job accenting the sculpt on her chest. I don't mean that in a weird way. Anyone that watches the channel knows I'm all about respect, and I mean that in all due respect. But I really like that they went the added detail on the chest sculpt to make it accurate and make it feel like this is Trish, right? And I'll show you some of her other figures and where they missed the mark there. But I think the chest sculpt is excellent. And as I mentioned, the body sculpt choices are also really good. We don't have any dainty limbs. We have nice, strong, muscular choices for parts. And I just can't say enough good about this body sculpt and the attire. I think it looks awesome. Now, taking a closer look at the details themselves, we have these, I guess, gauntlets painted on her forearms with a nice little web pattern there on both sides. Now the top, as I mentioned, has unique sculpting to the chest, and it looks really good. There's also sculpting to the top, and there's even sculpting that's displaying like a translucent or a see-through material going across there. It looks really, really cool. On the back, we have "Thank You, Trish," and we have that applied with a really clean paint application. We have sculpting on the shoulders with little silver studs painted in there. The midsection, oh, that is awesome. It's not just a painted over midsection. It is actually a sculpted on piece of plastic. And what's cool about this is it actually has a different texture than attires that I've covered in the past. I can't really explain it. You might be able to tell by looking at pictures, but it's kind of a matte type texture. It almost looks like a leather, and it looks freaking spectacular. It looks amazing. I absolutely love that, and I love that they also have sculpting on these little straps that go around the side, again with that see-through type material in between the cracks painted on. That looks really, really clean. But yeah, that midsection looks amazing there with that sculpted piece. The bottoms are mostly just painted on, but as I mentioned, the part choices are really, really good. The bottoms are just black here, and then we have black designs with silver trim, and then that mesh see-through color painted on there really, really well. Moving on down, she has the kick pad boots and, unfortunately, the basic articulated ankles. But yeah, as far as the body sculpt and the attire goes, I think it's darn near perfect. I think what really would have made it maybe the best Mattel women's wrestling figure ever, that might be stretching it. But if they had sculpting in the lower body, Jazzwares tends to do that, and Mattel shies away from it, but I'd like to see him do it in the future. But for what it is, I think this figure's body sculpt is tremendous, and I absolutely love this attire on her. They did awesome. All right, so let's have some fun. Let's do a side-by-side comparison between some of her figures here. Now, I wanted to avoid it, but before we get started, I gotta get another figure of hers. Hold on. Alright, I begrudgingly brought it out. I had to. You know, we just have to do a comparison here. But either way, on the far left, we have that putrid Elite Series 88 released in 2021. One of, if not the worst, women's wrestling figures of all time. Next up, we have Battle Pack 64 released in 2020. Now, this depicts a modern-day Trish. Obviously, we have today's Elite 111. And then on the right, we have basically a re-release of a previous Trish, but this is the most recent Trish I've reviewed on the channel, and this is WrestleMania 40 Elite, and that was released in 2023. So looking at all these Trishes, they're all very unique and different. You know what? Let's just get this out of the way. So Elite 88 is horrible. The main reason it's horrible is this facial likeness. It looks nothing like her. It looks terrible. The hair, I don't know what they tried doing here, but it looks like someone that was designing the figure ate a lot of Cheetos, got some Cheeto dust on the hair. And look at the attire here. The attire is just painted over the belly button, no fabric there whatsoever. This is what you call a phoned-in Elite. I absolutely hate it. I mean, look at it compared to today's. These look like two different people, absolutely two different people. And as you can see, I mentioned how in the past, they haven't really put extra detail in the chest sculpts of the female wrestlers. They really don't individualize the women. They kind of just reuse parts way too often. And as you can see, there's quite the upgrade in the chest sculpt here. They did a great job. But yeah, that's all I want to talk about Elite 88. This figure sucks. All right, so looking at these three figures here, On the far left, that Battle Pack 64 Trish. Now that depicts a modern type Trish. It did come with the Lita, and I think it's a super underrated basic. I think it looks really cool. I love the paint detail here. I think that facial sculpt and scan, which we've seen multiple times on Trish figures, works really well. Looks good. I also like the two-tone hair color there. Looks excellent. I think this is a cool modern day Trish. Now this one is a re-release of, I believe, a Hall of Fame Elite Trish, except it has that TrueFX face scan technology this time, and I think this sculpt and scan is also really good. It's the same one as that other one, we just have a different hair, and this is okay, but look at the detail on the top here. It's just painted over that generic top like they used to do all the time. Not a huge fan of that aspect, but I actually really like this Trish. This is one of my favorite figures of last year, honestly. It didn't get any votes. I don't think it got any votes for Figure of the Year, but I actually really liked it. However, I think today's Trish is the best Trish Elite. Now, yes, it looks super, super short, but here's the thing with Mattel. They're just like Jazzwares, where their scaling has not been in line with each other in quite some time. That's just something that these companies don't do. I don't know why some companies like Boss Fight get thrown under the bus for having smaller scale figures, when Mattel and Jazzwares are guilty to having way out of scale figures. They're just all over the place. I mean, wait till I review that new Kaden Carter next to that katana. I have a feeling that's going to be a joke. But either way, Trish is very short in stature. I mean, she's listed at 5'5". And this figure maybe could be a little bit taller, but I love it. I absolutely love it. I think the details that they gave this figure and the accessories they gave it make it the best Trish ever. I think it's the best Trish Stratus Elite they've ever made, and I have all of them. I've done a figure history of Trish Stratus through Mattel, and I honestly think today's Trish is a must-have in your collection. Now, if you're trying to collect a more divas or early women's WWF Women's Champion Trish, this isn't the one to get. I would go with this one here. But if you're looking for a modern day Trish or one Trish in general, I would absolutely scoop up Elite Series 111. It's my favorite Trish. Alright, so let's cover articulation. So the head can't really move a whole lot due to the hair sculpt, but that's pretty typical with women's wrestling figures. Shoulders on a ball joint can move in all different directions. We have the upper arm swivel, double jointed elbows that can really flex all the way. The wrist can swivel, it can also extend up and flex. We have the upper torso swivel, which actually is good movement there. We have good movement. We have a waist swivel, hip is on a ball joint, can move in all different directions. We have an upper thigh swivel there. Double jointed knees that can really flex well. We have an upper boot swivel, and we do have the basic articulated feet that can only planar flex and dorsiflex. They can't rock side to side. But yeah, this is a very articulated figure, and it works well. So overall, I give WWE Elite Series 111 Trish Stratus an overall score of a 9.9 out of 10. I freaking love this figure, and I wanted to give it a perfect 10. However, I do think that the sculpt, the facial sculpt, is a tiny, tiny, tiny bit off. Very small, but I could see some people out there not being a huge fan compared to some previous sculpts and scans of Trish. Me, myself, I love it. I think it's great, but I think it's almost perfect, not quite there. But everything else about this figure is truly amazing. I love the part choices. I love the sculpting detail that they put on this figure to make this feel like it's actually catered to being a Trish Stratus figure. It's got a lot of individualized sculpting details that we just don't get often on women's wrestling figures. So I think this Trish is one of the best figures of the year, and I really hope it gets lots of votes for the 2024 Jilly's Women's Wrestling Figure of the Year, because this figure deserves all the praise in the world. I absolutely love it. And I know some people are probably going to say the scale is a little too small, they made it a little too short. But as I mentioned, I'm almost at the point where I just don't even cover scale on the channel. I think the only time scale is super important is when it's like a Katana and Kaden situation where they're going to be displayed next to each other. This Trish, I think, looks fine on display, even if it might be a little too short. I think it's good. I think it's amazing. I can't say enough good about the figure. I can make this section of the video about 10 minutes long saying how much I love this Trish, but all I gotta say is thank you, Trish, and thank you, Mattel. Thanks for stopping by Lumberjillville. Women's wrestling lives here. To get a first look at all future women's wrestling figure reviews, make sure to hit subscribe and become an official resident of LJV today. Also, head on over to ringsidecollectibles.com and use coupon code LJV at checkout to save 10% on your next order of women's wrestling figures. Now stay tuned, there are tons, and I mean tons, of women's wrestling figures coming to Lumberjillville this summer for me to review, and I am super excited. Next up should be that Caden Carter basic. I haven't gotten notification on shipping yet, but it's starting to pop up in stores, so hopefully it gets shipped to me soon. I'm really excited to review that and compare it to the Katana. But besides that, there are a lot of future women's wrestling figures coming soon, and there's also going to be a bonus video between myself or the rest of the LJV gang. Whoever got their women's Money in the Bank prediction right will do a video figure review of their choice, so I'm a little nervous about that. I just hope I win. Let me know in the comments who you want to see win the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Now that being said, thank you for watching and have a great night, y'all.